Right, what we're going to do today is I've already started it, okay, so we're going to go for a complete end-to-end build guide and set up Alphaverse from scratch. So hopefully some of you guys will find this beneficial. If you've got any questions, just fire them in and I'll pick them up. Right, okay, so what we're going to do is just going to go through the basics. We're going to cover a complete server build. I was just doing one at the moment just to make sure, and I was double checking. You know, you should never pray to the gods of demo, delete everything I've just done, and we're going to go through it all again. I just wanted to verify it all works okay. If you've joined Alphaverse, you would have got these instructions, setting up Alphaverse the easy way, version 7, and that's what we're going to follow. There's other documentation. This will be V8. Yeah, if any changes, I don't think there'll be any changes to V7. I think if you follow the guide, you won't have any problems, but there is some other documentation when it comes to working with VPNs, but we'll cover those later. But what we're going to be doing is literally following the guide of V7 today, this one here. Now what we're looking at here, this is my setup. If you're not familiar with it, I mean, I'm sure you all know what a virtual server is. Yeah, and the virtual server, you can run on different platforms. You know, you can use VirtualBox, you can buy a virtual server from a hosting provider, you can build your own using different hypervisors. You've got VMware, you've got Zen server, loads. XNG is another very good one. Loads of different hypervisors where if you, instead of installing them on your machine, you install them on some kit and you install a hypervisor. This one here is running Citrix Zen server as a hypervisor. If we just look at this, I mean, it's an old spec machine, and I think it cost about $150. This server, it's really cheap. It comes with 128 gigs of RAM. I did upgrade the CPUs, so I spent a little bit of money, but they were so cheap. Yeah, so it's got 40 CPU cores, 128 gigs of memory, if I'm not mistaken, and I've installed Citrix Zen server on it. And this is the hypervisor we're going to be using for doing a demo in it. So I don't want this video to be all about the hypervisor, because it could be any hypervisor. It's the process that I want you to go through. So we're going to kick this off. So basically we're going to create a new virtual machine. Okay, and we're going to be running Ubuntu latest version. And we're just going to call this alpha hyphen. I've already built one here, but we're going to delete that. And then we're going to install Ubuntu server. Not a desktop, just Ubuntu server. Going to make 2 changes, change 2 virtual CPUs, 2 gigs of RAM is ample to run this. Next, and I will give it 30 gigabytes of hard disk space. Now for me, I'm only putting one network interface into this. And click create now. This will probably be the longest part of the video, guys, installing Ubuntu. So it's going to be quite boring. So yeah, if you can't install Ubuntu, I'll be slightly worried, but it's the most easiest operating system to install. Right, let's kick this install off. Right, very basic install. Ubuntu server done. Use entire disk. So this is the most boring part. So I'm just going to call this MrBtcGambler. I'm just going to call this alpha hyphen, and the password is password 100. Very secure. Okay, we don't need Pro. We do want to install OpenSSH, and then we're basically done. Now this will do a system update during the install. The process that we're going to cover today is we're going to create like a template, which I have created one here already where I've done all this, where I'm going to say up until the point before we get to the yarn install, I'm going to create a template because it would be common for the server and the client at that point there, so it will save time later on. Right, I've just installed NetTools, so I missed that command here. So the reason I installed NetTools is because I couldn't run ifconfig without that. So I've now got an IP address, and this has come from my DHCP server. So I should be able to run a WinSAP session to that. what I'm doing now, guys, I'm just logging in to that server using WinSCP, just simply so that I can install the what we call the hypervisor integration tools. Wouldn't normally need to do this, but for me I need to do this because I'm running Citrix Zen server, so I'm just going to copy them from another machine. Like I said, this is the boring part. So this is just going to install the Zen integration tools. As you can see at the moment, it's not optimized. We can reboot this now. Right, now the Zen integration tools are done, this button works. This one here means I can run putty, which means I can copy and paste, which I couldn't do before. We're at the stage now, we've built Ubuntu server, vanilla install, done nothing. And if you was to get a VPS, you would probably get it in this particular state. And you're at this stage here where we're bringing in the documentation. So the first thing I'm going to do is just set the host name. And because this is going to be the template, I'm just going to call this alpha hyphen. We're going to set the IP address. Sudo nano. I say this is in the instructions. Let this change here, this line here, sudo nano netplan. And this is the point when you go over to Discord, because Discord becomes a friend, and we can copy across an example static IP configuration, because to say this is finicky is an understatement. All the indentation, even if you're out by one space, it doesn't work. So Control and K will delete a line. Right, I'm going to give this an IP address. And then sudo netplan apply, again in the instructions. So we're here, okay, in the instructions so far. This time I'm going to use a putty session. I already added it into my multi-putty manager. So if I have this side by side, I'm going to open the same document here. Got to this stage, so we're going to basically go through these commands, literally copy and paste them. Like I say, anybody should be able to follow this. So what we've done now then is we've gone for the first step. We've installed NVM, and to make NVM usable, you have to log out of it and you have to log back in. It says in the instructions here, log out of the client to make NVM usable. And then we just follow this code. Thanks, Finn. As you can see, I've hopefully made this really easy for you. It really is just literally copy and paste. Okay, these are the same instructions I sent everybody else. I'm not following any different instructions that I haven't sent anybody else. So this is now pulling down Alphaverse. Now these net2 commands, they're not actually mandatory, but they're good to have, because what it does, it stores the password if there's an update. All you need to do is run a get pull, and it's these credentials that I put in now that it's going to remember, so it's going to store them. It's a bit like caching your password basically. I say it's not particularly mandatory, but now that we've done this, I run a get pull. If there was an update to the server, they would just update, and that's all I ever need to run going forwards. That's why we put them in there. They're just useful. This point here, I said I'd stop before I get to the yarn install, because it's really important, because the package.json file related to the client is different to the package.json file to the server, and I don't think many people picked up on that. So if you look in, there is actually two package.json files. There's one, the normal one, which is the default one for the client, and there's the server.package.json file. So when we're building the server, we need to change the package.json file for the server one, and there is a reason for that, because the other one has got headerless browser in it and it's got Puppeteer in it, and that's quite heavyweight, and you don't particularly want that on every single client. It's a waste of resource. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy with this, and what we should be able to just shut this down. The hardware system that's now installed. Once I installed the Zen tools, and then I can convert this to a template. And from here we can create a new virtual machine, and this one here we're going to call alpha-server-demo. Okay, next. And you can see this is going to be much faster than install Ubuntu's. Next, install. Now this is going to boot up. And it's going to have the wrong host name and the wrong IP address. I could have skipped all this stuff, I could have just gone straight to this at this stage of the video, but I think it's important for you to see this. I know it's boring, but yeah, we've had a couple of people that have had problems at this stage. So I'm just going to change the host name. And then sudo nano etc netplan. Change the IP address, and I've already pre-configured this in my host file. Okay, right, so we're going to build the server. We're going to continue with the instructions, but before we do that, so because we're on the server, we're going to remove the package.json, because that relates to the client and not to the server, and we're going to change the name of the server package.json to package and then we can continue. So we're doing ls here. We should have a package.json file which would be very different to the client package.json file, and then redo the rest. So yarn install. As you can see, this is installing Puppeteer, which it doesn't do on a client. Puppeteer is used by the GetIP server. It logs into your Alphaverse server and gets a list of IP addresses in use, so when you restart the VPN you don't get a duplicate. Okay, and then no packet manager upgrade. Okay, great. It says here now, go to the website passwordgenerator.net PHP and create 2 passwords, 22 characters and 64 characters long. I'll just show you that. It's important when you do this, you exclude symbols and you make sure you click the box that says ambiguous characters, so that's got to be checked. And I've already created those here. I've got 2 passwords, one of 22 characters long, and that's going to be used when you log on to your web page, when you create your server, and then this long 64 character code, and that's going to be used as the auth token. So when the sockets are made between the client and the server, it's looking for that auth token, and if it's not there then it rejects the connection. So add the layer of security to your environment. Right, we've got 2 passwords, so we need to go into the client config and the server config and set them up. In the client config we're going to have to put the auth token, which is that long 64-bit character. Now at the moment this box won't know how to talk to this server, so we basically we're going to have to add this into the host file. So we also need to change the server config. Now this server doesn't know how to even talk to itself. We do have to add into the host file. We'd have to do the same for the client as well. We don't need any of this. Okay, name resolution works on that. Right, so at this stage Right, so we've generated 2 passwords. We set up the client config and the server config with all the settings. We set the static IP address on the server. So technically, we should be able to go. We should be able to restart the server. We should be able to. We need to make sure that all the bash files are executable. Yeah. So restarting the server. We're running. We are running. So technically I should be able to connect to that. We've built Alphaverse. So the server's up and running. I mean, that wasn't difficult. I mean, the longest part was installing Linux on this. That took the longest time. But what we need to do now is we need to create a template for the client. So we're basically going to create a new virtual machine from the template that we created earlier. And we're just going to call this -client -. Right, for the client build, we're going to basically do most of this stuff we've done already because we created it from a template. Where we are is we're at the point where we're at to do a yarn install. Alphaverse would already be there. And this, as I said, this will have a different package.json file from the server, but it doesn't have Puppeteer in it. So when we do a yarn install for this, just want to make sure that I've covered everything you need to know. Okay. See where the client's going to differ greatly is it's going to have a desktop on it, and so we're using a command that does a minimal install of the known desktop. Once we've done this once, guys, you only need to do this once because we create a template from it. And as you can see, I am literally just copying the plan line by line. I promise you guys, we're nearly there. So take my word for it, it's really boring. Yeah, once you've done this a few times, once you create a template, life becomes easy. I want you to see a build beginning to end. This, we're going to change it so it automatically logs into the desktop, by the way. So you have to scroll down, you have to unhash. Automatic login is true, and then you just simply put the username, which I think this is a massive security vulnerability to Linux, because if you know this, if you've got access to that file, you don't need the password. Now for me, I'm going to be using VPN on this, so I need to install OpenVPN. We are very, very nearly there. And I do have a guide for that, and you probably would have seen it, hopefully. So I need to copy over the VPN files. So I've got a bunch of VPN locations already predetermined. These are in Discord, by the way. These are already pre-set up with the ciphers already to work with Open PIA and all the right ciphers, and I configured it to point to a particular file to get the credentials, and the file is called pass. So these are all kind of pre-set up already, and these destinations are done. So all I need to do is copy those up using WinSCP. So the command here says sudo copy, we can say France, and then we're going to say to client.conf. Apologies for the delay there. Right, define my PIA credentials. So I've set them up, and I've got 15 PIA accounts, by the way. You can create 11 virtual machines from one PIA account. It does seem to be unlimited though, I have to say. I don't think I needed 15 accounts. VPN works. Yeah, just follow this guide and it will work. Okay, so where are we with the build? We're very nearly there. Very, very nearly there. So obviously this being a template, I want to add into the host file the name of the server so it knows how to talk to the server. You really want to get as much as you can into your template. Okay. On the putty itself, the Alphaverse load folder, you got to make sure this is executable. This is the Alphaverse agent. So I just want to double check everything. So I'm just rebooting it, and hopefully, if all gone well, it should boot into an Ubuntu desktop and should automatically launch the Alphaverse client. And it should automatically start the VPN as well. So that command where we nano the GDM3 and set the automatic logon to MrBtcGambler. Now we're here, we're going to make a couple of changes. So if there are any updates, guys, install them. Update all. Because this is going to be your template. Yeah, you want it fully patched up. What I tend to do is I patch mine every month. Now we're missing something. There should be a button here that says settings, and I've seen this before. I think there's a bug in my... I think I have to reinstall the control center. I don't know why. This button wasn't there earlier, so we needed this button. Yeah, because under privacy, under the screen, you don't want the screen to ever basically automatically lock. That's all we needed that button for. We're going to launch startup applications, and whatever's in there we're going to remove it, and we're going to add under the Alphaverse Live and bin folder. There's a command to run the run Alphaverse agent or start agent, and that's important because that launches it in RAM, so it makes it a lot more efficient. So it takes away a lot of the disk I/O performance that I spoke about earlier. So this is actually a script file that runs the Alphaverse agent in RAM. Don't need to give it a name, and close that. And then let's just check to make sure that there are no software updates. Restart it now. And hopefully when it restarts we will see it will now automatically launch the Alphaverse agent. And then we're getting very close to turning this into a template. Hopefully the Alphaverse agent will launch. Does not look like it isn't. Okay. You're a little bit premature. So, I cancel this. Yeah, the reason this doesn't work actually is I know damn well why. Because the client config, one of the things we installed is something called JQ. JQ is a piece of software that allows me to extract information from a client config here, because we never specified the sudo password, which is what it's looking in here, and the config, it's failing because it uses the sudo password to create a RAM drive. We said the password here is password 100. Okay. Hopefully this should work now. Now while that's doing that, this is pretty much ready to be turned into a generic template. Perfect. Yeah, I'm happy with this, guys. So yeah, all good. So we can shut this down, and this now becomes your template. So you convert this to a template. We are very, very nearly there. Now, for the purpose of demo, to make sure everything's working okay, we're going to fire this up. I'm going to use an existing account. So I'm going to use this account here. I'm going to copy over the client config for that particular client just for the purpose of demo, so we can see it actually active and connected into Alphaverse and actively working. Obviously I need to change the host name and IP address when it comes up. Right, so all we need to do now is just change the host name. We're going to call it, and change the IP address. And this will be 2.176. Okay, we're good. So I should be able to, if I go on here, it may take a second for the network configuration. This should be fine now. Right, we're connected in, so all I need at this stage here is put in the details of the auth token, the master host, API key and user details. So I'm going to do this off screen. Guys in the background, what I'm doing, I'm putting over the details that's obviously sensitive that I can't share. I'll come back. Hopefully this should be okay. I put the right client configuration in it now. Let's double check everything. We've got the Alphaverse agent open. I'm going to change it to statetr.com. We've got the server running here with no clients attached to it. Obviously before we can launch it, we've got to get the session cookie from Cloudflare, and we should be ready to run. There we go, guys. We have a client. We built the server, we built the template, we deployed the template, and we added a client into that template, and it all looks good. So what we're going to do is, on this client config, just for the purpose of demoing, I'm going to put it into simulation mode. Okay, so I've changed it now. So I've set the simulation mode to true in order to run the simulation. I've built an API server, so you need to run that in restart API server screen -r. Okay, that's listening. Like I say, just for the purpose of testing, do have a script. This one here, this is an example to simulate the bets. Or we got Dragon Tower Simulator example. We could put that in the client config. So yeah, and if we could change the package.json file to use this for the dice bot. So there's our client at the moment. It's got no funds in it. But if we set the simulation mode to true, which we have done, it should pick up the funds that have been defined as simulated balance in the client config and the recovery pot. Oh, looking good. It's picked up a fake balance 225 as was defined within the client config, so technically we should be able to gamble. So this is running, and this should run. There we go, we're good. So this is basically running simulated betting. It runs super fast, Dragon Tower, hard mode, 50-50 win chance, and it's using the API server that's built on the server. So it's the next day, guys. So I'm going to end the video here. This concludes the build guide. So I'll update the instructions to version 8. So complement in this video, which will go in version 8 of the instructions, will have this video link embedded into it. And if you can see, I've done it, and literally you copy and paste line for line. And I could see where I needed to make changes, and the changes that I particularly need to make in the code is, one is where you create a template just for the Ubuntu Linux so that you can build a client and a server from at a certain point, and then you create the server, and then you create the client, and then you convert the client into a template. But more importantly, what I've missed out in my steps as well is that you need to rename the package.json file in when you run a git pull. There's one called server.package.json, and on the server you need to delete the package.json file that is there and rename that one to package.json, and I will put those instructions in V8. So I hope you found this video useful. Like always, I'm here to help, so if you have any problems from it, but if you follow this guide you will be able to build Alphaverse yourself. So if you get any questions, guys, you know where to find me. Remember, if you like this content, smack that like button please, and feedback is so important, guys. I'm going to end the video here, and I'll speak to you all again very, very soon.